at that, just shooting back and forth.
1 year ago, after the Pulse nightclub shooting, which killed 49 people and wounded 58 others, a survivor is opening up about the tragic event and how she is using music, in fact, as a way to heal. Patience Carter was shot at Pulse, and she's one of the youngest victims. She was shot in both legs while hiding from the shooter in the bathroom.
Chris. Oh my gosh, Chris.
She had recently completed her second year of college and headed to Orlando for a vacation with her best friend. On Carter's first night in the city, she headed to Pulse with her friend and the friend's cousin. It's a night she'll never, ever forget. And Patience Carter is with me now. Good morning, and thank you very much for your time this morning on what's been a massive day for you, no doubt.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for your time. Patience, by all accounts, you and your friends were having a fabulous time. You were having a great night out. I understand you were just about to grab an Uber and head home, and then that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah. It was like almost 2, it was 1:58. I was sitting next to Akira. I just glanced down at her phone, looked at the time. Then I asked Tiara, how are we getting home? Tiara started to order the Uber, and that's when the shots started going off.
You were inside the actual Pulse nightclub when you started hearing shots being fired?
Yeah, I was inside. But then after the shots went off, my initial reaction was to drop to the floor. Tiara ran towards the bar, and then Akira was just like pivoting back and forth between the both of us, not really sure what to do. But my body response was to just back away from everything that was in front of me. So I started scooting backwards on the floor, and I ended up getting outside because of where the exit was positioned to where we were sitting. I felt my hands in the grass. And then Akira ran over. She was like hovering over top of me, and I saw the sky behind her head. So we were definitely outside. And then I asked her where Tiara was. And then she said Tiara was still inside. So I was like, we have to go back in to get her. And she darts back in. I get up. I dart back in. We see her squatting by the bar. And then we realize everyone, the entire club is rushing towards the bathrooms. We still hear the gunshots going on. So we just rush into the bathrooms with everyone else. That's where we got stuck for 3 hours.
So you and your friend and your friend's cousin, you're all in the back of the bathroom?
Yes. We were all in the same bathroom stall right before the gunman came in and started shooting.
Patience, what goes through your mind when you're held up in the back of a bathroom and you can hear the carnage happening outside the bar or outside the toilets?
It's like an undescribable amount of fear. Indescribable. It's petrifying.
You were there for 3 hours. And I think it's really important for people to understand just what you and your friends went through, to understand the absolute fear. Then the gunman comes into the bathroom and you're shot in the leg twice.
Yeah. It was silent for a moment. The music stopped playing, and then you just hear his footsteps come into the bathroom. We're all huddled in the bathroom stall at this point. There's a girl on the floor holding her arm. She's bleeding. There's people around. They're confused. People are shushing, and we're confused. We're not understanding the gravity of what's going on. And all of a sudden, you hear these footsteps, and then he starts firing into the bathroom nonstop. He keeps firing and firing until his gun jams. And that's the only thing that stopped him from firing. And then after he stopped shooting, I realized that I was shot in both of my legs. I looked up to see if my friends were okay. Tiara was shot in her side, and Akira was shot in her arm.
So when you look back now, you must be able to realise that the only thing that perhaps kept you alive was the fact that his gun jammed.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing that kept most of the survivors from my bathroom alive, was the fact that his gun jammed. And honestly, if we weren't waiting for 3 hours, I'm pretty sure there would have been more survivors. But just the situation itself, it was very torturous. I mean, we had to wait in there, and we had to watch people die, and it was horrible.
Did you ever physically see the shooter?
No, I never physically seen the shooter. biggest fear was getting shot in the face. So when he entered into our bathroom stall, right before the police came and busted the wall, my face was turned into the other stall, and my body was in the handicapped stall where he was standing in. And he started to shoot again. So my biggest fear was just getting shot in the face.
Patience, when was there a sense of safety for you and the other people that were held up in the toilets? Do you remember that moment when you knew that everything was over?
I didn't really get to that sense of everything was over until a few days being in the hospital. Even when the police came in, we were all worried that there were snipers outside. Even when we got to the hospital, everyone was worried that it wasn't over, that they were going to come back together. Even a couple of days in the hospital, realized, like, okay, it's a possibility that something could happen after this, but let's start taking a breather and just coming to some sense of peace with the whole thing. But that didn't happen until a few days after.
Patient, sadly, one of the people who you were with that night didn't survive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Kira Murray.
Your friend's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a sense of safety now, or is it always the anxiousness that's with you?
Absolutely not. That sense of safety is just completely out the window, especially after seeing what happened in Manchester. I feel like everybody's susceptible so much. Anything can happen at any time, and it's really hard to feel safe anymore after something like that. And just seeing constant things happen over and over and over again, you're thinking, what is really changing?
You make an interesting point. I mean, we've reported here, obviously, the atrocities in Manchester, London, Baghdad, Afghanistan, and Kabul had one of the biggest bombings ever. It seems that terrorism just is a continuation of life on this planet at the moment. So for you, it must be hard to try and move on when it's always represented in the media so often, the atrocities that happen. Does that make the grieving process all that more difficult to move on, Patience?
I mean, absolutely. And overall, it's hard. So seeing more things happen similar, like, for instance, with the Manchester shooting, with the Manchester bombing, it happened in a similar manner as the Post nightclub shooting. The concert was just ending. People were getting ready to go home. They were excited about getting ready to go home. Then all of a sudden, something devastating happens, and then everybody's world is turned upside down. So, yeah, you lose hope. Of course you do.
When you saw some of the young victims, and when you saw on the television the images of what was initially a happy event, as you say, the similarities are quite shocking in a way. What would you say to those who survived this, who may have seen the terror, who may have seen the trauma? What would you tell them?
Honestly, I know there's so many people right now telling them to hang on, keep the faith. God has a reason for everything. And I know that's probably the last thing that a parent wants to hear, realizing their 18-year-old daughter is no longer on this earth with them. But to not sound like the rest of them, I just ask them to keep going, keep living, and don't be afraid of living. Because this type of thing can stop you completely. It can stop you from living completely if you let it. And you just can't. And you don't know how strong you are until you don't have any other choice. And now's the time to be strong.
I was just going to say, you have no other choice but to be strong. And you are strong because you've used the incident, and I hate to use the word incident, it almost sounds like I'm downplaying it. You've used this tragic case from your own life to try and do things good. For example, I understand that you use music now as a way to heal yourself and others. Talk to me about that, because I think that's lovely.
Yeah, just writing in general. Writing creatively is something that I've always done to help get through really tough times. And Orlando was a really tough time, and I resorted to just writing creatively, and I ended up writing songs creatively, poems, just expressing myself in ways that weren't harmful to myself or harmful to anybody else. So I definitely encourage people to use creative outlets to express their pain.
And I think that works, and, you know, there's therapy and advice that actually says when you can use your outlets such as being creative to move on, you can cope. Patience, I know it's been a big day for you and your friends and family members too. How have you spent today?
Today is going to be definitely a hill to climb. The day isn't over yet, and already it's very, very draining emotionally for everyone because it's constant reminders everywhere you look. So you just have to, like, again, just remain strong and keep going and try to refill, you know, your spirit with something positive because the day isn't over yet.
Well, I thank you very much for being on our program in New Zealand, and I wish you all the very best. And I know you've told your story before, but I thank you very much for being on the program, and I admire your strength and courage in the way that you conduct yourself, the way you handle yourself with grace and dignity, and I wish you all the very best, Patience.
Thank you so much.